In today's video, we tackle a burning question. Should Cupcake fire the rebels in his GNU cabinet to safeguard South Africa's sovereignty? Together, we uncover the intricacies and implications of this hot topic. Let us get into it without wasting any more time.
Molini, and welcome to yet another episode of Conversations with Nkosi. Now, this is the news commentary section where we will be offering insightful commentary and exploring various perspectives on the stories that shape our world.
Now, let's start by understanding the term GNU cabinet. According to those who support it, GNU stands for Government of National Unity. It is a coalition government in South Africa that is said to pave way for ensuring that unity and inclusivity exists across the political parties involved. However, conflicts within such a diverse cabinet are bound to arise, which would result in, the emergence of rebels due to them not being in sync because, again, their loyalty lies with the parties that put the individuals in question in parliament. Now, the rebels in the GNU cabinet challenge the status quo by voicing dissent, which breeds friction, hindering, their overall progress as a collective. In the case of Cupcake, these rebels may disrupt his agenda and governance. But should Cyril Ramaphosa fire these rebels? Now, that's the million-dollar question. On one hand, removing dissenting voices can streamline decision-making and enhance cohesion. But on the other, diversity of opinions is vital for a robust democracy. With that being said, let us get into this opinion piece published via the IOL website. The Democratic Alliance has brazenly thrown down the gauntlet, openly challenging the sovereignty of South Africa and the authority of its head of state. In the wake of the 16th BRICS summit, Leon Schreiber, a DA minister responsible for oversight of the Department of Home Affairs, unilaterally signed and publicly announced visa-free access for Ukrainian diplomatic, official, and service passport holders. He did this without consulting the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, or the Office of the President. This flagrant disregard for governmental protocols is a direct affront to our nation's foreign policy stance. Adding to this defiance, John Steenhuisen, Minister of Agriculture and leader of the Democratic Alliance, failed to attend the recent BRICS summit in Russia, a vital forum for cooperation on food security, agriculture, and sustainable development. His absence is unprecedented, particularly given that the summit focused on issues directly tied to his portfolio. Equally alarming is his public criticism of President Cyril Ramaphosa's engagement with Russian President Vladimir Putin, openly undermining the president's authority and South Africa's commitment to BRICS. This blatant dissent is a calculated attempt by Steenhuisen to steer the nation away from its strategic alliances, align with Western narratives, and uphold unipolarity. What, besides white arrogance, emboldens Schreiber, Steenhuisen, and the DA to flout established rules and advance their own agendas over national interests? Their errant actions reflect a disturbing alignment with foreign interests aiming to shift South Africa's geopolitical trajectory from its historical non-aligned stance towards Western spheres of influence. Far from just overreach, this signals an ongoing attempt to destroy what is left of the African National Congress and destabilize South Africa's role within BRICS. The DA's opposition to the Bella Bill was in retrospect a warning shot. When Minister of Basic Education Siviwe Warube boycotted its signing ceremony in September this year, the party's defiance of government reforms was laid bare. The Bela Bill aims to centralize school policies, regulate homeschooling, lower the starting school age, and ban corporal punishment, promoting inclusivity. Warube's absence was a clear stand against the bill's intent to centralize certain powers within the Department of Basic Education and promote inclusivity. Framing the bill as an infringement on provincial rights, the DA positioned itself as a defender of decentralized authority. This boycott marked the DA's strategic effort to challenge the ANC-led government's authority, positioning itself within conservative interests and setting a tone of resistance to transformative policies. All of this signals the continuation of a soft coup, the genesis of which was established in April 2017 via the donor-funded Zuma Must Fall SOS campaign. This movement, under the banner of accountability, was strategically crafted to unseat President Jacob Zuma, whose leadership, however flawed, promoted a developmental state model aimed at uplifting the socio-economic conditions of South Africa's black majority. Zuma's focus on land reform, economic transformation, and BRICS alignment posed a challenge to entrenched corporate interests and neoliberal agendas favoring Western influence. The campaign to oust Zuma was in essence a maneuver to dismantle any efforts at economic sovereignty and replace him with Cyril Ramaphosa, a leader whose corporate affiliations and Western-friendly stance aligned closely with the interests of global capital. Ramaphosa's ascent marked a shift from a vision of African self-reliance to an even more market-driven austerity approach that positions South Africa as a compliant player in the Western-dominated global order, sacrificing genuine developmental objectives in favor of policies that privilege elite economic interests. President Ramaphosa is therefore not a blameless player in the Ukraine visa debacle. Firstly, he chose a coalition with the DA, realigning with neoliberal market forces instead of progressive African ideals. His own wavering ideology, caught between Western interests and BRICS commitments, has facilitated this internal revolt. His close ties with powerful economic elites, the Stellenbosch-based white billionaire club, cast doubt on his ability to enforce discipline and act decisively. Added to this is his reliance on DA support to shield him from the legal consequences of the Phala scandal, allowing figures like Steenhuisen and Leon to act with impunity, their positions fortified by the president's vulnerability and ideological ambiguity. African-centric parties like Umkhonto weSizwe will have to remain vigilant against these destabilizing forces to realign the country with authentic African nationalism. This vigilance is essential to counter political actors who advance foreign agendas. It is imperative to resist the creeping influence of U.S. geopolitical interests. These destabilizing forces at play go beyond political opposition. They represent a broader neoliberal push that undermines self-determination in favor of economic policies dictated by Western powers. In this context, the fight for sovereignty transcends party politics. It involves reclaiming control over resources, economic policies, and cultural identity in a landscape increasingly shaped by external pressures. Strong, independent leadership resistant to the influence of Western capital is critical to ensuring South Africa's future remains rooted in African interests. In the meantime, Ramaphosa must act decisively to address this insubordination. Steenhuisen and Leon cannot be allowed to operate unchecked. Their actions warrant immediate removal to safeguard South Africa's sovereignty and restore the integrity of its foreign policy. Failing to act would set a dangerous precedent, signaling an alarming tolerance for defiance that could further weaken governmental cohesion and diminish the country's standing on the global stage. The DA's actions are not just a challenge to the ANC, but a direct threat to the fabric of South African democracy. Their attempts to realign the country's foreign policy in favor of Western interests undermine the will of the majority. Ramaphosa's ideological wavering has opened the door for the DA's subversive actions, jeopardizing the nation's role in the multipolar world. Allowing Steenhuisen and Leon to remain in these influential roles would only invite further attempts to overthrow the ANC's role in government and lead South Africa deeper into austerity and dystopia. Now, this opinion piece was penned down by Miss Gillian Schutter, who happens to be a filmmaker and a well-known social justice and race justice activist and public intellectual. You can actually find this via the IOL link that will be in the description box below. Now, let us get into what we got from this piece. I do not have much to say because I agree with Umam Gillian Appa, because again, the actions taken by the DA are not merely a challenge to Kongi, but they represent a significant threat to the foundations of South African democracy. Their efforts to reshape the nation's foreign policy in favor of Western interests disregards the will of the majority. There's no sugarcoating it, there's no tiptoeing around it. Literally. But also, could it be that they're doing this to increase their voter count to kick the ANC out of parley? And is Kongi helping them achieve this by tiptoeing around certain things? Pela, when Siviwe chose to ignore the signing of the Bella Bill, that alone should have signaled instability within this government of national unity, because that decision indicated a lack of unity among them. Shortly after, you then have the Minister of Home Affairs, who takes to Twitter to boast about work he claims to have introduced or done, suggesting that his predecessor left things in a state of stagnation, when that's not the case. That's far from being true. And that narrative alone is very misleading, because we witnessed in real time how Utatu Mutsualedi was being, attacked or criticized rather by the NGOs that claim to be protectors or defenders of democracy, I don't know, for implementing the very same initiatives and doing the job that Leon now claims to have introduced. As for John, I have no words whatsoever. This is the same person who was busy chanting pala 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 pala, but when the GNU talk came up, it was crickets. This is the same person that also tried to bend rules to accommodate unqualified people in his office. Please. But then again, guys, Ramaphosa's inconsistent stance has unwittingly paved way for the DA's undermining tactics, putting South Africa's role in a multipolar world at risk. Allowing John and Leon to retain their influential positions would only embolden further attempts to destabilize the ANC's governance, ultimately driving South Africa deeper into austerity and a bleak future. I don't think this GNU thing is going to end well, guys. The cookie has already begun to crumble. As we conclude our video, Cupcake should not hesitate to remove the rebels in his GNU cabinet in order to uphold accountability, foster unity, and strengthen governance, despite potential backlash and challenges, obviously associated with such a decision. Hey, but then again, how are we to expect him to do something when he himself fails to adhere to his own rules? Pala Pala happened and it was swept under the rug for the sake of this GNU cookie that has already begun to crumble. So removing the rebels may send a clear message that adherence to party principles and collective decision-making is non-negotiable in a coalition government, thereby promoting transparency and accountability But how, when he himself lacks a clear understanding of what transparency and accountability look like?
That marks the end of today's video. Thank you so much for lending your eyes and ears. I hope that you found today's video informative. Please do not forget to click on that subscription button or light the notification bell so that you do not miss out on any new uploads. Nkosi.